All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, The Bella Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello, hello.
And today we're gonna be talking about what to expect from Gen Con, all the crazy stuff that we know is releasing from PaizoCon, and honestly taking a look at some of the other tabletop games that might be creeping out of the woodwork, as one of my current favorite games, Fabula Ultimate, also really got made popular more from last year's Gen Con. So I have really big expectations for what's to come. But before we get to any of that, we're going to have some small talk. So if you want to skip all that and you're watching post the fact, we usually get on around the 20-25 minute range. So somewhere in there. But before that, Alex, what's been up?
Well, I finally did it. I broke the cycle. I did, in fact, release a video. I finally released a Vampire the Masquerade video. Did better than my other vampire videos on launch, like I thought, because Clan Gangrel is just popular. And I've started cooking on the Trench Crusade video.
Yeah, we gotta get another one out.
I started digging through their Discord, which is primarily I just have a fucking search tab open of the two creators in the tab for the lore of the faction I'm covering, which is like, all right, are there any little tidbits? And there are. I've gained some insight, and I'm working on it. So yeah, I'm actually back at the grindstone finally.
Nice. I'm getting my grindstone ready because the grind comes soon.
Very soon.
I've been desperately trying to get all the stuff that needs to get done like ahead of time, because during all of this, I am also going to have you all come over, all my friends come over for like the first full week of August. And so I need to do double videos for a bit, like whenever I can manage, to try to like get some extra time on the table, so then I can have that week and not stress.
Yeah, just have like a couple things like kind of set aside.
Well, it's mostly just like just so I can have like a week of videos that I don't have to actively work during that week, kind of thing. So that's gonna be the big thing. Right now we're doing a little bit of landscaping. We're trying to get ready to put a shed in, and we need like 600 pounds of sand, and I don't even know how much stone for setting it up. So that's gonna be the next few days, probably, is getting that shed put in. Other than that, it's just been taking it easy, knowing it's the hard part is yet to come.
Just goofy. You need that much sand to put a shed in.
Well, it's especially hard because we live in a very wet area, so
yeah, that's doesn't help.
That's where we need to make sure. And we also live in a very green area, which is almost worse, because you just get plants who are willing to grow into and through whatever you put on the ground. So
they will grow anywhere. It's all the it's like the shit you gotta deal with if you have plants in your home. The stuff that need like, oh, the proper pH soil level. It's like, no. And there's the stuff that grows through concrete and wood.
Yeah.
They'll just do whatever.
And Hard Bushido, you've not missed anything. We're just having some small chat talk right now, some light chatting while we're letting people filter in, as always. Well, one of the weird parts is we have lots of like clay in the ground here, which you would think would stop plants, but it does not.
No, it'll keep going. Yeah, other than just like writing stuff and like doing all this lore bits. Man, it's like all I've other been doing is just kind of just adding in the work to my normal schedule, which is just I've just been crunching away. I got really hard into Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance since now it's out and remastered and a better game that runs better.
I know. I saw it and I'm like, oh, do I want to get another another game right now?
Well, it's really good, and then the
really
problem
good.
is it's really long, and you got to play it twice if you're like me. Because well, if you don't have the time for it, you should just play the Vengeance path because like it's the better one, it's the better written one. But like I like SMT like a lot, and I'm playing both. Mainly because it also one of the bits is they kind of assume to a basic extent you know the first story, like the path of creation. So some of the twists and turns are like assuming you understand the context.
Right.
But if you just know SMT, you know the context is kind of easy to judge. It's just chaos, order, something in between. It's very good, and then every other change they've made is fantastic. They completely made the game like a lot more interesting of an RPG. Like it's so good, and it runs better because I had it before and the frame rate was dog shit.
Yeah.
Oh man,
So I've been crunching for PC release.
I've been playing it on Switch actually.
Oh really?
Cause it's a long RPG where a lot of times I'm just clicking the same attack over and over again. So I want to play that horizontal. If I had a Steam Deck, that'd be a different story. That's my dream.
Fair.
I want a Steam Deck so bad, but I just don't have the money right now. Maybe in like a year, I'll have one. It's just been that, and then me also obsessing, which I made like I had to thank my YouTube subs for it because they're the ones who actually put me onto it when I was talking about it endlessly on Tuesday. Getting into the Stormlight Archives book series.
Yeah.
Which a bunch of my YouTube subs then got excited and all were like, yeah, and making references I didn't understand. So I've just been jumping between two very long pieces of art where I just look in the horizon and I'm like, I'm going to be done with these in like months. The end is not in sight.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I'm going to be working on both of them in August when I come visit.
Funny enough, you mentioned that as well. I know it's been mentioned on stream a few times. I don't remember who mentioned it, but I have finally purchased Numenera. An old...
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a TTRPG game. I'm sure most people who've ever looked into the TTRPG section have seen Numenera at some point or another. It's by Money Cook Games.
I've seen that cover before, at least once.
It is some Numenera. Yeah. Money Cook, who's currently the developer for the Cypher system, which a lot of people have been kind of going ape over. As ape as any niche community can get anyway. I've seen that so many times. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pick it up. We went to the Cosmic Games and I was like, all right, I need to get something here. I did look for Mutants and Masterminds, but they did not have it.
Oh, shame.
Which I'm not surprised, honestly.
Not at all.
I don't think
that game
I've
is
ever
like
seen that in a store.
Isn't it like kind of abandonware right now?
I think
like
so.
It's kind of dead.
But Numenera, and like it's a new book. This is not like an old used book or anything. So like people have to be buying this for them to keep stocking the shelves. Oh no, and it's interesting because Numenera is 80s sci-fi fantasy.
Okay, my interest is piqued.
It's got a lot of the same feeling as like Dune.
My interest is somehow more piqued.
Like I've been reading through it and I'm like, this seems like hear me out, Numeria instead. Is there another game with an almost exact same name?
There's a game on Steam. There's Tides of Numeria.
Oh no, okay, that's a location in. I've heard Numeria, and I was like, oh god, did I get the wrong game by mistake? No, that's an area in Galarian.
Oh, it's Torment Tides of Numeria, which I have. Oh shit! Oh, this is in the same universe as the book you're holding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the thematic successor to Planescape Torment, which is a game I've had a lot of people tell me I should play. That's dope, actually. Holy shit. Okay.
So, yeah, it looks interesting. The mechanics are interesting, though there is a little bit of trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to this book, from what I've seen. So, like, it's a D20 system, but it's not a D20 and, like, add a billion modifiers. Kind of? So, there's 10 difficulties. Each difficulty is essentially 3. So, difficulty 1 is you need to roll 3 or higher. 2 is 6 or higher. 3 is 9 or higher.
Mm-hmm.
Which means anything after 7, because 7, even though it's 21, you can get a bonus of +1 or +2 in the game. So 21 is possible on a D20 if you roll really, really well. But anything beyond that is technically impossible. But how this game kind of does it without adding a bazillion modifiers is if your character is skilled in something, you actually reduce the difficulty of the check by 1 step. And if you're specialized in it, you reduce it by 2 steps. Which sounds like a way more complicated system than it really is. Because all that means is equivalently, you're either adding +3 more or you're reducing the difficulty by 3 more. Yes, it is a player-only system. GMs never roll dice in Numenera at all. When a creature attacks, the players roll defense, which I think you guys will like, because you've liked it in the past.
I do like rolling defense.
So
I think just having an active system for it is a bit more fun.
It also has flat damage, which I kind of go back and forth on flat damage. I like flat damage because it makes combat faster. Because essentially, if a creature hits you, it always does the same damage. And if you hit a creature, you always do the same damage, minus armor. Which makes combat fast, because damage is predetermined. But I know people also like rolling damage dice. So I don't know. And static numbers might feel more stagnant. I've never really played a static damage system extensively, except for technically Monster of the Week. But Monster of the Week has such little HP, technically, that it doesn't matter.
Really curious. I just picked up, like, as you were describing this too, and going through this, I picked up the CRPG for Tides of Numeria on Steam because it's super cheap on sale right now. It's like $8 for a game that's normally like 30 something bucks. I was really worried for a sec because I was looking at CRPG and I was trying to determine if it was a real-time strategy or a turn-based game, because I can't stand real-time CRPGs. The game system looks cool from the game, like from the trailer. So what you're describing plus the trailer, it seems like one that I'm fucking intrigued. Interest peaked. The system sounds dope.
Yeah, well, so here's the real cool thing. So you have a character archetype, which there's 3 basic archetypes. I know there's some expansions to the game, but I only have the core book at this time. But there's 3 basic types. You're either the Glade Fighter, or Glaive Fighter, which is just the fighter class. Character types. So there's Glaive, which is essentially the fighter class. You're a big melee person. typically very into using stuff. There's the Nano, which you're someone who uses psionic abilities with nanite augmentation, essentially, which is like the magic caster-esque one. And then there's the Jack, and the Jack is essentially like the skill monkey rogue-esque type of style. But on top of this, you get a focus, and focus is where like your real build comes into place, because your focus changes your. Oh, you also get a descriptor, which gives you like some base stat boosts. Like you're a glaive, you're an intelligent glaive, who gives you like more smart or more intellect dice you can use in some situations, all kinds of things. But the one that's really cool is the character focus, where I'll read off some of the focuses because they're interesting. Your character bears a halo of fire.
Okay. Starting off strong. All right.
That's the first one. Your character creates a sheath of flames around your body. You leave scorch marks wherever you go, and you can't handle combustible objects without first dousing your inherent flame. So you're just always on fire, I guess. Then there's carries a quiver, which just means you have a bow mastery. Commands mental powers, just gives you psychic abilities. Controls beasts, where you get beast companions. Crafts unique objects. Employs magnetism.
Ooh.
Entertains. Exists partially out of phase.
All right.
Explores dark places. Fights with panache. Focuses mind over matter. Fuses flesh and steel. Howls at the moon. Hunts with great skill. Lives in the wilderness. There's a lot. And there's still plenty more after that. And there's some extra books that I'm sure adds more stuff as well. And it's not quite a rules light system, but it's designed with rules light kind of ideas. And isn't the lore of the world an apocalypse happened like a million times in the past, and basically everything is some kind of ancient tech? Yeah, so the idea is it's Dune. It's like Dune, where civilization has hit this point where it's like post-apocalyptic. They have something called iron winds, which looks like a sandstorm, but it's actually a swarm of nanites just flying across the planet's surface, destroying anything in its path. That's just a weather condition they have in this world.
See, that's why you gotta actually go full Dune and go through the Butlerian Jihad and get rid of your AI. Like that's the reason you gotta, because they saw that in the Dune universe, like the idea that this could happen, and we're like, let's just kill all like machines, let's just get rid of them, and they did. And you know what universe didn't have a AI uprising after that? The Dune universe.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just you play a bunch of adventurers, more or less. You like people who are trying to find the secrets of the world. And the idea is that your characters are proficient. Like when you start off, leveling isn't like the main aspect of the game. You spend XP to augment your character, and every so many times you do that, you level up essentially. But your characters are already proficient. And so like the idea of what Numenera is supposed to be is like, all right, you want a Dune universe you can explore that has mechanics for it and that has a bit more of a fantasy pang to it than Dune technically does, then Numenera will be for you. So yeah, I picked that up. Who knows? We might try it when everyone is here. be kind of fun.
Yeah,
Be kind of goofy.
would be fun.
It like if you look at the art, it just looks like 80s sci-fi.
It like the art for it looks really sick, to be honest.
Yeah. My only gripes is it's definitely designed by a guy who thinks he can make the perfect TTRPG. And some of that comes across in some of the writing that's in the book and some of the presentation. I would say it's not bad by any means. I think it just overassumes on itself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because you get like this opening log in the front of the book. Like you get like a thematic set of chapters to read through to kind of get the vibe of the setting. And he's like, I took the writing style from this and that. What was it? It was a big one. It was can't remember. Sir Arthur C. Clarke's. What is it? Oh no, something written by Sir Arthur C. Clarke. The name's in here. I can't find it. I don't want to look overly long. Monty Cook is basically behind the ivory tower design mentality of D&D 3E, so yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the thing. Like it looks interesting. Oh yeah, so right. So he was like, "Oh, I took from the writing example of this," and he wrote a story in the beginning. It's very dry, uninteresting writing.
Damn.
It's like every other sentence, it's describing a thing. Like the companion has like a six-legged animal companion, and he just straight out describes what the creature looks like in like 2 sentences, and not in an organic way or anything like that. It was just
very efficient GM way of describing something,
kind of. And it's like, this isn't good writing. This is you're trying to demonstrate what you're doing kind of writing.
Yeah.
And when I was reading through it, it was like kind of interesting, but the writing style was just a little amateurish in comparison to like the style that was trying to be mimicked. Not to say that I could write better, by no means. I'm just saying that was the vibe I was getting from reading it and the way it was presented.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people really like Monty Cook games, and I'm definitely willing to try this one and the Cypher system at some point in the near future. But it feels a lot of remaking the wheel.
Yeah.
It's just like, here's this difficulty system, and if your character's good at something, then the difficulty goes down. But it's just like, but then what's the difference? What's the difference between giving a character a +3 modifier for proficiency and reducing the difficulty of a check? You know, there's some nuanced differences, but they're not enough. And for most like middle of the game kind of stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, if your character ever reduces the difficulty down to 0, you automatically pass the check. So it's like sensible, right? If you ever get above the minimum requirement, like you can't roll below the minimum, then it's just an auto succeed. But this one at least doesn't have the same kind of like, I don't think it has a fumble system actually. I have to double check. I haven't read the whole thing yet.
You know, speaking of reinventing the wheel, it's something I discovered. I just got the glimpses of it on Tuesday. It's something I'm gonna keep my eyes on. We'll see if it's something that I guess we address and cover, or I guess it'd be something that I more than likely will report on with now my new obsession. But I mentioned in our game on Tuesday that the Stormlight Archive is going to be getting a tabletop game. It's going to get a Kickstarter on August 4th or August 5th or something. Like, it's going to come out next month for it. But it is getting a tabletop system created by who are these people making it? The company that made that also the same company that made Call to Adventure.
Right.
And Boss Monster. And some of the main design team they have, funnily enough, are the people who worked on Legend of the Five Rings. Huh. And yeah, Legend of the Five Rings, Star Wars, Age of Rebellion, Warhammer 40k, Roleplay, the Fallout stuff, like a bunch of like names. But one of the things I noted, because we don't have a lot of details on like how the game actually like mainly works, one of the key ones that immediately worried me, but apparently some people who have actually played at least playtests of it have said it's not as worrying. It is a D20 system that keeps being referred to. People who are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons will be quite familiar with its system.
Awesome. Yeah.
Worrying. However, apparently, it you know, it's a basic D20. You D20, add a modifier. You want to roll high. But they go into detail of they have actual things like character options, good multi-class rules is something they made sure to note.
I mean, I'm all for that.
Same, very good flexibility in character growth, dynamic actions. There's a new type of dice that they added called a plot dice whenever anything risky or dramatic is going to happen, which will, the outcome of which will determine either add like something really cool, flashy, or something like, you know, fucky or weird to the scene. Like, or as it's put out, complications or opportunities, which is something the Star Wars system does that I like. I think that's something, is that something that Five Rings did?
I think so, yeah.
Because that's something that that was the bit where I kept getting Star Wars PTSD from Five Rings. Right? I was like, this is so familiar. This is like the same dice system, but different. And other than that, the main thing it's also doing is where's the other bit? There's one other thing that it has. Someone made a nice little descriptor. It has a bunch more tweaks. So action to action apparently isn't just like 5th edition actions where it's like, you know, action, bonus action, reaction. You actually have like more things you can do on your turn. And there are more, just I guess reactive elements you can do, more resources you can spend on attacks, on misses. Even if you like fail your checks in combat, you can still do things and get like minor successes. But a lot of it is just resource management. And there's just a lot of very cool things apparently. And another bit that's mentioned that I really like is they made it so you get level options every single level. So there's not just dead levels like 5th edition, which is something that also makes me happy because if they're comparing it to Dungeons and Dragons, I get worried about how fun the level ups feel. It's hoo boy, some of those levels feel really sad. But yeah, the apparently the main bit that they're focusing in on is they want to make a system that's designated to make very like character focused epic scale stories, because that's what Stormlight Archives is. So they want to make your characters very, you know, epic and like very flashy and cool and tell very fun stories. And apparently based on the playtests of both players who have been like commenting on some like Reddit posts about it and from some designers who have just talked a little bit about it, playtests have come back successful.
That's good.
Very, very good. People, random people at conventions have said, we had a great time with it. So looking forward to when the Kickstarter drops.
Yeah, and actually that kind of leads into the main topic here.
Yeah, with Gen
Also,
Con.
yeah, Gen Con, and also follow Miss. Yes, I am enjoying my last couple extra weeks before Player Core 2 releases. We're probably so here. Paizo's gonna be doing a live stream next Friday. So I'm assuming they're doing that right before the books are gonna get sent out. So we're probably gonna start seeing content creators with it the next couple weeks, either the week of the 14th or the 21st, depending.
Yeah, I can see it.
Sometime in that range is what I'm gonna guess. But yeah, so we're at the point, the quiet before the storm. Soon we're gonna be inundated with nonstop tabletop news. Crit Awards not happening. Any thoughts? I'd never watched it in the first place, so I have no opinion.
No, sad about the series of events that went on.
Yeah, I did see some of the drama around it.
Yeah, it's overall like major shame about all of that. And like honestly, it seems like the people running the Crit Awards, at least the last I saw the drama, no clue if anything else came out. Seems like the people running it are decent folk and like feel for them. So damn. But also, I don't know. I also just don't. I've never really watched Gen Con stuff, so I'm not as familiar as some many other folk. I'm not the person to give a very good and nuanced take on anything.
Yeah, I'm also just not. Unfortunately, award ceremonies are one of two things, right? So they're either typically a event where people in a community get together to either blast the awards or are hooting and hollering for the awards or whatever. You know, it's kind of like the Game Awards. The Game Awards isn't anything actually prestigious, honestly. No one really takes it that seriously, but it's turned into an event where everyone gets together and they just kind of just enjoy the Game Awards as like an event in a sense. Like some people get hyped about it, some people don't. But whatever games actually win is either a game everyone agrees with or everyone thinks got bought out. So, you know, smaller awards are more just like they're more just like a way for smaller creators in a sense to get some recognition, and it's more about the creators themselves than it is about the actual event being a big social thing. So when it comes to something like this, it means a lot for people who are in that community and who really want like to see their game shouted out or stuff like that along those lines. But in the more general zeitgeist, I would say not even 20% of tabletop players would even pay attention to something like that. So I've never really paid attention to it. It doesn't really mean anything, and tabletop has always been something that's been so niche anyway that like you literally never know what game system is good until you play it. So what the point of an award seems kind of silly other than giving recognition, which is fine and is good for those people, but you know, it doesn't really mean anything on the grander whole of tabletop, in my opinion. So and to be fair, this also just seems to be smaller coordinating organization against big organization coordination thing and somewhat corporate thing, and those two things don't overlap very easy. Yeah, the reason it's not happening sucks for sure.
Exactly. That's the part I definitely feel for more than anything, because if it's a show I wasn't gonna watch anyways, like fair enough. I feel for the people who put all the work into organizing something, putting a lot of effort into doing a thing every year, and then standing up for what they believe in, and a thing that I also sympathize with and believe in as well. and then being shut down. That does suck. So like that, I feel for the crit awards. And other than that, I also am just like, I wait at the end of Gen Con for the cliff notes of what got announced and like what fun stuff revealed, because I'm sadly can't attend myself. I don't have the
Yeah.
money to go travel.
Yeah. Yeah, I miss when we had PaizoCon because we can just drive there and not be a big deal.
No, they're in our state. Damn it, makes it so easy.
Also, I'm looking at now, Crit Awards isn't even that old of a thing. It was founded in 2023.
Oh so. Wow. Imagine it was at least like probably like I don't know, in the 2020s at some point.
Yeah. So, you know, again, like, kind of shitty that everything's happened, but let's be real here. Who honestly is really missing this out? Only the people who could have won, probably, right? So, for most everyone else, If it was bigger, maybe I'd care a little bit more. I'd love to see Tabletop have something like more on the level of the Game Awards, but that's just not going to happen. So, it's just whatever. And unfortunately, it's just like you fight. If you're going to fight corporate, you're just going to lose because the whole point is using corporate to get your stuff out.
Honestly, the best method that they can do is just run it independent.
Yeah.
Like just run a live stream version of it and use the publicity. That's probably the best answer for it, because like you probably still have everything kind of set up and organized, just or not even like set up physically and organized, but at least you have like the plan and the idea of what you were gonna do. No reason to waste momentum. Just do it virtually, do it remotely, have a thing that can then carry on in the future when you have a much larger presence, I guess. No reason to, I guess, have your thing break because of one bad year. I like that'd be the method to carry on and keep building the crit awards to become something larger. Like honestly, just make it virtual, because it should be something. There should be a thing to give recognition like that too, especially indie releases, indie stuff. So just run it virtually. Just then it's just a method of also building up the recognizability of it and the discoverability of it, which is difficult.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it's so you know, it's unfortunate, what can I say, but we can look forward to, at the very least, hopefully some more bangers coming out. Like I kind of mentioned earlier in the stream, Fabula Ultima really got put on my radar because of its showing during the last Gen Con, and I really hope we start to see more. Oh yeah, right, wasn't I remember something about this RPG books, because wasn't Lancer supposed to come out with new physical books this year? Wasn't that a
yes thing? They published by Dark Horse, and I also saw at least some Lancer thing was posting out little teasers of some special edition books.
Because I would love to get a physical Lancer book at some point in the future. And I would love to see Lancer get a real good showing in like Gen Con.
The books will be available June 11th and 12th, 2024.
So they must be already out, yeah. So hopefully hopefully that means that they will be at Gen Con, physical books that people can actually get their hands on, which means Lancer's more likely, because that's the thing, right? That's the big thing about conventions. A lot of people are always like, conventions are always hard to run and they always have drama, and also are centers of plague, which is true. I don't think I've gone to a single convention without getting a little bit sick, at least. But they're also one of the places where you get to see things like TTRPG books and stuff that you just wouldn't get a chance to see anywhere else because they just don't make it onto like Barnes and Noble or whatever other bookstores you would tend to see.
I sent you a picture of the of art they're using for the second printing of the core book.
That's cool.
It looks really good. If that's on display at Gen Con, I hope people are picking it up.
Yeah. So that's the general thing I'm excited about, is more physical books getting out to people so that they can see them in an area that's highly social. That's also one of the big parts of Gen Con, is it's a very social place. People are reporting, content creators are swarming the place all the time, trying to get whatever news, whatever good stuff coming out. And yeah. And so I'm excited because I want to see more games come out. I know a lot of small publishers also understand this and are very focused on trying to get stuff released to this. And I want new stuff. I want to try new things. Like, obviously, I don't have the time. I got this Numenera book knowing I might not get to actually run anything around it for like a year. Yeah, I mean, like, conventions are always just, unfortunately, very difficult for a lot of people to get to. And more so with, like, the rise and trend of more and more content creators, honestly, because venues are getting more purchased out more easily, which is a weird situation to live in, where content creators are just becoming almost a problem in a lot of ways. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. We'll see. And Paizo is going to be, like, it's not even just Gen Con, even though they are going to be doing the Starfinder 2E playtest, which is huge. And I hope a lot of people get their hands on it for sure. But, I mean, we have Player Core 2 pretty much releasing at the same time as Gen Con. We have the Tianxia character guide coming out very soon after. And we have, there might be D&D 2024 stuff news or something coming out at that convention as well. We just don't know.
Wouldn't be surprised. I also will give at least some slight bad news. I was looking at the exhibitor list of all the people that are reported. There's no Mastiff Press.
Damn, that's unfortunate, because it would really help them out to get their game out to the public.
I agree. Who is the company that made Fabula Ultima?
Oh, goodness. I don't remember. Need Games. Need in all caps.
Need Games. There they are. They'll be there.
That's good. Maybe they'll come out, or have news about a new game coming out. But yeah, Need Games. Who knows? That's the thing, right? That's the fun of Gen Con, is not knowing exactly what is going to be coming out. And Hard Bushido, fair enough. I'm not advocating for Wizards' overall success. I'm just talking about news, because honestly, from everything I've been seeing about D&D 2024, it's like, hey, do you want a $70 errata in book form?
Did you see yesterday? They had a whole fucking trailer that they posted yesterday that just said that drinking a potion is a bonus action.
Oh no. How long is the trailer?
I don't know. It's like a little promo video. I have to look exactly, but it was just yesterday. It
I
was just a whole video that's like, guys, potions, drinking them, bonus action.
If it's not super long, I would love to just
Let's see. Let me
watch it.
find it. It's posted yesterday, so I can quickly. It's 50 seconds.
50 seconds.
I'll link it
Okay.
to you. There you go. It's like a cut from a longer video on the D&D handbook. Like it's a cut from a YouTube video, but it's just I saw someone reacting to like I can't believe we're being charged for a big errata. Like this is news.
Drinking potions. No bonus action. Let's see here. Yeah, share screen. All right.
Yeah, there was the reason I saw it. It was some it's a big tabletop account I've seen a lot. 10 years of development, hundreds of writers, artists and designers, $6 billion of revenue a year brought to this groundbreaking advancement in game design. Drinking potions is now a bonus action.
All right, let's see.
Many people over the last 10 years have allowed people to drink potions as a bonus action, feeling it was way too punishing running the rules as they were written in 2014 to have to spend your entire action drinking a potion. Particularly scary if you're dying and you're drinking that healing potion. And so people are going to find that now
I love how he doesn't talk about how shitty their potions are.
And there are shifts like that.
There is cheering happening right now while this video is playing.
Yeah, and there are shifts like that everywhere you look in the rules, that it will feel like
shifts like
game
that
you've been playing,
everywhere in the rules.
Everywhere you look, enhanced. Many people over the last 10 years have allowed people.
I really don't want to bash D&D every single stream. But man, they post stuff like that and it's so fucking funny, man.
Like I just thought I just thought the quote retweets are really funny of people being like, this is news that you're announcing, of like and then also just people being like, this is a book that's just Tasha in home rule reprints and you're literally charging us for it.
They're like, the new book. This is this big thing that they've been leading up to for over a year now, and then they come out with shit like this. Is like, they made a clip. Someone in corporate decided that potions being a bonus action was worthy enough to be put on Twitter and put into a video.
But, granted, it's a good change, but like it's a dumb promo.
It's a good change because the original rules were so bad. The thing is, this shouldn't be controversial at all. Like, it shouldn't be big. It should just be in like, oh yeah, that makes things a little easier. But because the game was so broken, the fact that they just moved that action type, everyone's just like, oh my god, it's official. Now. Like,
if D&D, if like we didn't want to make fun of D&D every stream, it's like Dead Phoenix said, why is it so easy?
Yeah, they didn't want to be made fun of them. Why are they such a fucking joke?
Why do they keep painting a target like every day? Stop reapplying the target.
It's so bad, and the thing is, again, none of that. Who even actually? Well, okay, if as a bonus action, I guess, but man, potions in D&D 5e are so bad anyway. I never even considered doing it because it just doesn't. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna use my bonus action to negate one hit from an enemy, maybe.
It's a thing I said a while ago. I once, just from a D&D campaign, implemented Pathfinder 2nd Edition's potions with just slightly just rounding out and increasing the price a little bit, and the game operated just smoother.
Yeah.
It just worked better. Like it just
the-
felt better because now every player just could like, do other actions. They felt safer. They were spending their money a little better, and they had the game was less ping pongy.
Yeah.
So it worked really well, actually. Like just the potion system, it worked, and then players were really happy about it because they were like, oh, these potions feel good. Actually, it feels like a healing potion, not like a revival potion.
Yeah, no, so that's the thing, right? That's when I ever think about how terribly done D&D 5e is, I think about how the fact that their potions were originally an action, your whole action to use, 50 gold pieces, and 50 gold pieces.
50 gold pieces.
And the healing from them is so bad that no one would use them. It literally looked like no one legitimately playtested any of that. Because who would have used those potions, spending their full action, spending 50 gold to get these potions, mind you, and thought that was a good idea?
Like, you essentially, in actual operation, you have the most you spend is you spend maybe 100 to 150 gold to have just a couple, because you want to have a few on, like, just spread out across your party as emergency revives. Like, that is the use of them, and it's strictly because, like, you want to make sure the healer is able to be brought up so then they can use a better heal. Like, that's the practical application of a healing potion in play. In like any other situation, it's just not useful. You then change to a bonus action. They're used a little more often, but it's still held back by how bad they are and how expensive they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, like literally, 2d4 plus 2 is really good at level 1. Like, that is a full heal at level 1 for a lot of characters. The likelihood of them having 50 gold is, like, ridiculous.
Well, and that's the thing, though, right? That's still the problem, because at level 1, even if that would be, like, almost a full heal or a full heal, right? That just means that they're drinking a potion, and then their turn ends. The creature hits them, half healths them again, and so they have to think, do I drink another potion to stay alive another round? Or what do I do? Like...
Also,
it's still just bad, regardless.
Also, it's even worse because we got it reported that apparently level 1 and 2 aren't meant to be played.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's also that. Them just admitting the first 2 levels of their game, and they're like, most players start the game at level 3. And it's just like, isn't that a problem? Shouldn't you make levels 1 and 2 playable?
Shouldn't you, like, make level 1, level 3, and then scale your levels to make them more condensed and interesting? Wouldn't that solve your problems? That sounds like that'd solve your problems, then, because one of the big issues is dead levels. You just change it around, so then every level you get something, like, something cool that would fix it. No, you're just gonna, like, make us just have 1 and 2. Okay, cool, thank you.
We're just gonna put them in the game anyway.
They'll get upset if they don't have their original dead levels, because some players are weird and like to have not fun for a month as they play through levels 1 and 2. Just think how fun it'll be when you're level 3. You'll have fun later. That's the fun of this game. I hate this. What a stupid way to design your game.
Again, like, right, this is the problem. We I don't want to do this. But it's such a joke, and I'm not even trying to be mean about that. Legitimately, I cannot understand how any D&D player could defend something like their potions. Like, the only thing I could see is like, well, potions weren't meant to be used in combat. And it's just like, wow, that sucks, doesn't it? When you need healing and you don't have a healer, guess you're just fucked. That's the whole point of potions in the first place. That's why they were useful, is because you could use them in combat. There's a whole fucking chapter about the ergonomics of a potion bottle in old D&D books, like a whole section talked about like how much is in them and all that. I don't know. And this has been a thing where I get it, right? We're still just being those Pathfinder players right now, the D&D players we're talking about.
We 100% are.
It's something that it's like unavoidable at this point. Because you're looking at other TTRPG players, watching them play a game that seems like it was written by high schoolers. Like, there's some good things in there, some good ideas, mixed in with just a lot of bad implementation that has no foresight.
Yeah, and that's the part that sucks, because, like, you look at it, and you look at stuff where you're like, oh, these are really cool. Like, one thing that's genuinely really dope, the Echo Fighter subclass for Fighter, genuinely such a dope concept. A dope concept because it's a Matthew Mercer subclass, and he is actually a good designer. It makes fun stuff. Like, the difference of quality for something he writes is noticeable. But like, Echo Knight is very, very cool and very, very well done. And then it's a good concept. And then you look at other things where you're like, why did you do this? Why did you write it like this? And to be fair, I would make the exact same judgment as I would in a lot of other games. It's just D&D is a game that is the most popular tabletop game in the market. So it's the most talked about.
Yeah.
It's the one that's most brought up. It's the one that gets like the most screen time because other people in the company gets the most face time because they're just doing stuff. But if we were coming across a game and we were testing it on our own like live stream and we were playing it and we came across stuff. Actually, yeah, that was us literally in Vampire the Masquerade, a game that like overall we actually like. But we also, the whole time, we're like, why the fuck is the book designed like this? The whole time. We were frustrated with why the core book was designed by morons. Because the rules in the game, there are some fun rules. Which I think it's fair to disagree whether or not some parts you like. Personally, a method I always really, really enjoy. I really love the mechanic of a dice pool and the actual like attribute skill combination. I really like the method World of Darkness games have always done, where you tie in a skill and an attribute, and whatever combination you use completely changes. System,
but yeah,
I love that system. It's genuinely really cool because as someone who likes to come up with weird, creative like situations, I like to use that because I like the idea of like, I want to use charisma firearms in a situation instead of like a player that would be like, all right, I use charisma dex to shoot, and that's it. That's the only way I'll use my firearm skill. I like that every skill can be creatively used.
Yeah.
And then other than that, you then look at it and you're like, why is this one mechanic spread out to 4 separate chapters? Why? I hate this. I just want to drink a guy. Why is this so complicated? Because the book was designed and like laid out by morons, which is so sad because you go back and you read the old core books, as I have a few times, and they are actually normally written with a much better art style as well, like a much better like artistic design too. So it hurts me more.
Yeah. So, you know, like, right, it's, even though we're being those Pathfinder players, and I admit being those Pathfinder players is just annoying, it's unavoidable because again, it's right there in front of you, and it's just like you just don't have to talk about the game. It's like, yeah, but it's big in tabletop. It's news in tabletop. We're looking at the game seriously. And to be fair, not even the most D&D and D&D stans thinks D&D is a good game, actually. Not really. Why? Why, despite all their arguing that it is good? Because they have the incessant need to have it modded by homebrew constantly, consistently. And they're like, but that's the part we love is homebrew. Then it doesn't have to be D&D, does it? If everything you like about a game had to be made by someone else, it wasn't the game you liked, it was the homebrew.
Yeah, it's, there's an inherent difference where you can like have that be a thing, be honest about it. I feel like a lot of people who make that claim aren't, because I can sit here as someone whose favorite video game of all time is Fallout New Vegas, a game that you have to play modded. You have to, because otherwise the game won't fucking run. But also you'd be like, there's the two experiences. You can play it hyper modded, hyper crazy. I like the game. Some of the game systems do need to be altered to be fun, but it's because the story, the world, and like the everything around it is great. It's just a game held together by duct tape, and so you need to fix it. And I'd like it for more people to admit that. Like, you should be able to admit that about D&D. You should be able to freely criticize the things you love. You should be the first person to criticize the things you love as the person who loves it.
I'll be the first person to say, even though Pathfinder has made my channel, even though we're about to hit 6K subscribers, that's almost 95% purely due to Pathfinder. Pathfinder 2nd Edition has some rules in it that are legitimately bad.
I think the dropping your items on like going down is a stupid rule.
Dropping items going
agree.
down, stupid rule. Climbing in general, completely unusable unless you take feats, which just removes a whole layer of verticality. Flight requiring difficult terrain going up and down is the silliest, most pointless thing I've ever seen. And in addition to that, that is also how it works in swimming too, which also makes no sense. I can go on and on.
I don't like their bag system. I know we disagree on that personally. I know we disagree on that personally
anymore. They don't
have
I'm happy
about
anymore.
I'm very happy about that. I don't like it because I don't like inventory management in tabletop games because I think it's boring tedium, unnecessary. But because this is a game in my brain, I'm not gonna manage my imaginary man's pockets. But the other one was diagonal movement.
Diagonal movement, also trash.
Is weird. I don't like it.
I understand the reasoning behind it because of how
too.
squares work, but it's dumb. And it in most video games, it's taken out. Granted, when you play Fire Emblem, they use the same rule actually.
Do they?
Yeah.
Huh? I had to think about that for a second. I'm not a fan of it at all. Like because the thing is from me, a man who only passed geometry with a D because my teacher took pity on me. Because he knew I was struggling. A man who genuinely cannot picture size and distance in my head. I understand the logic, as it's been explained to me, why moving diagonally on a square grid costs an extra 5 feet of movement. It still doesn't compute. I both get the reasoning, but it doesn't make sense. If that tracks for anybody.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I am curious. Dead Phoenix, why do you like diagonal movement? Explain to me what it adds to the game that is taken away by removing diagonal movement. I'm just curious. No harshing anyone's mellow here. You like what you like. That's fair. But I struggle to see what the point of it is, because like you said, yeah, in Fire Emblem they just don't let you make diagonal movements. Exactly, that's the thing. That's why they still use the same system. But it doesn't add anything, because if you remove it for everyone, it's the same thing. Icon only allows the roguelike job classes to move diagonally. That's interesting. I mean,
Fair enough. I'll take that.
I would say if it was more of a mechanic, that makes that, if it's a mechanic in the game, I'm for it. If it's something that's used in the game, but in practical use, I've never seen diagonal movement actually benefit a game at all. Square Fireball seems weird to me. I agree. We still actually do normal templates for that kind of stuff, which does seem weird considering the lack of diagonal movement. But the thing is, you can't get out of the range of a fireball when it's being cast. So the movement doesn't matter anyway. It changes how you can move. In what way? Like, actually. And how you interact with environment and AoEs. Like I said, we still keep AoEs as they are generally. It's just movement. For the sake of movement.
Mainly it's because there's a couple of like games, you know, like Fire Emblem, like in those type of games where you're on a grid and you don't have diagonal movement. Because the way I see it is if I'm in a situation where it's like a video game and it just doesn't allow me to make diagonal movement, fair enough. That's totally fine. But then I play in games where it does let me make diagonal movement, but it's very clear I'm making like a step-by-step kind of thing. Which I've played a lot of games like that, where it's very clear you make like one step at a time every time you press a movement, but you can move diagonally. It doesn't like change anything or like doesn't take any extra resources. Things like that. I've played a good few games like that. Top of my head, it's hard to remember some. It's just I play some weird isometric indie titles and stuff. I just play a lot of indie games.
Most games have some like diagonal movement actually essentially costing more. I can clearly see it in my head all the time. I just don't see the purpose of it. The only time it benefits the players in my game is when an enemy has an aura. Because an aura then applies diagonal, right? So a player wants to get out of the aura quicker, moves diagonally. And you know what's also really weird? I actually don't... No, it does. Okay, never mind. But yeah, it doesn't... I just don't see the point in adding it. If you add it or remove it, I feel like when removing it, all it means is that players feel like they have more movement.
Yeah, because I moved one. I clicked the button once and I moved one square, but you're telling me I moved 2 squares, so that doesn't make sense.
Well, it's not even that. It's not even consistently that. It's you're moving diagonally, so remember, it's 5, 10, 5, 10, 5, 10.
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't track. I short circuit and I don't get it. That's my problem. Because it's like it makes like I know there's like a math reason or something, but it doesn't make sense. I don't get it.
Well, because and again, it's
geometry.
It's so what does it do, right? It's just like moving diagonally doesn't help anyone because everyone is equally affected by it. It's an immersion thing for me. Like if I imagine a horizontal plane with axes, I think is what you mean with an I, moving the same speed diagonally as in the X and Y axis, it breaks my brain. That's, I guess...
It breaks my immersion because I can move diagonally in real life. Well, I'm doing it right now.
Like
I'm moving diagonally freely.
I play Lancer, we use
the cops can't stop me. No one's arresting me and I'm moving diagonally right now. It's free and it's costing not 10 extra movement.
When diagonal is always relative anyway. That's the thing that breaks my brain. is the idea that a character moving this way, like you're standing on a 10 by 10 grid, right? And the idea that a character moving on this grid, a character can move 10 spaces in 2 axes faster than diagonal, which is still only 10 squares technically, doesn't make sense. I understand the math that it is further on the grid, but it just doesn't. It's 10 squares is 10 squares. You don't move diagonally in real life faster than you can move north, south, east, west. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, because
diagonal's
technically,
relative.
I mean, on like a grid space, you are technically, aren't you getting like a little bits of extra movement when you move diagonal?
It's yeah, technically on a grid, it is
Yeah.
that way.
It's meant to patch that problem, but like then the solution is to play on hexes, which are better.
Right.
But like that's the real fix, is play on a hex system. But then the other problem is because everything is so D&D based, good luck finding a hex map.
Well, and you know what, Harvest, you know the funny thing is, Pathfinder, for the purpose of melee reach, diagonals don't carry the same rule. Funny enough. That's actually in the rule. Melee reach ignores diagonal rules, which makes it make less sense.
I've been trying to visualize all these arguments the whole time, and it's been like short-circuiting. It's been, because I don't know, I also feel like some of it does break down to how do you picture tabletop like combat, what do you want to get out of it, and a lot of it to me breaks down in like, I'm picturing a real guy, no grid, it's me running at somebody, and I'm like, yeah, I would move diagonally. How would you stop me? I'm gonna move diagonal.
Yeah,
but it's also like, it's a game, like but then there's the separation in my head that's like, yeah, but this is taking place in our brains, you know, let's use our brains for this one.
It's, yeah, I don't know, it's, I've yet to see a convincing argument that movement diagonally adds anything to a game.
And at the very least, it, like many rule additions, honestly, as long as it's an equitable thing, like if the enemies are playing by the same rules as the players, I don't see a big problem.
Like I said, the only system it breaks is technically trying to leave an enemy's aura, because you do then, if you're not using it, technically can leave the aura easier, but I would wager 9 times out of 10 you can move out of an enemy's aura with the same amount of movement regardless.
And I'd also argue in that case then the enemy can move out of a player aura with the same ease.
Right, right.
So that's at least how I always operate. It's one of the, funnily enough, it was a discussion I was having with my partner because they were watching me play Shin Megami Tensei 5, because they were like, is this Persona? And I was like, no, it's a little different. They were just curious what it was. And basically the reason I like it so much is I absolutely love the idea of a game where the enemies are operating on the same rule set as a player. And then the understanding of the game is like, you better break the game before the bosses do, because they will. They are going to break the system and exploit it. You know the rules, the game knows it better. Get to it first. And that is really fun. And so like, I like that. If there's going to be an addition, it should be at least equitable in some way like that. And so, you know, if I can move diagonal, the enemy can move diagonal.
And also, yeah, I don't know what you're saying about Dead Phoenix about you don't move diagonally in real life faster than you can move north, south, east, west, because those aren't points on a map. They're all relative. So
I mean, if you're trying to go somewhere, like get to the same place and it's north, and someone's going northwest, I guess. But
That's
yeah,
literally
like
what
that's
you
not the
said.
point. Yeah, I know what the point that they're trying to make is. You're going to the same destination. One person moving diagonal, one person isn't. But like alternatively, my counter argument is still a prompt. Watch me. I'm going to. I will race you. I'll race diagonally and I'll win. Just to prove that the diagonal movement rule is good, and I'll always keep it.
I don't know. Anyway, we've used it all the time. Doesn't break our game once, and we've played. Gosh, I don't know. I think we're at nearly 100 sessions, something like that. And I mean, to be fair, in all of Pathfinder games we played, over 100 sessions, never has mattered. Not once. Not even for leaving auras, which is the thing I've seen. Not even seen. I know is the most abusable part about it. If you move diagonally given an axis, you move more distance, Lamau. Yes, I understand that, but real life isn't an axis. North, west, south is all relative. Look at a circle. What do you mean?
See, this is what made me fail geometry.
A circle is equidistant from the center at all points. And try to fit a circle on a grid. Yes. Again, we understand the math. Everyone is just saying, but the reality is my immersion, grids and circles don't mix. Yeah, but in how it actually plays, there's no difference. Playing in what way? How would you have used it?
I mean, probably in the same way that we were talking about, of like
Leaving
leaving
an aura?
auras and like using, like getting a little bit of extra movement in certain ways for better ranges. Because I know I've used diagonal movement to just to get into range of spells I couldn't have in like normal horizontal and like just normal movement.
Well,
Like
yeah, but
are ignoring.
But the enemies are all using the same amount, so like.
Yeah, so that's why I at least am not like, it wasn't me breaking a rule. It was like, well, the enemies are gonna do it too. There's an archer or a spellcaster that's gonna do the exact same shit I just did. So,
like, saying I'm taking advantage of the lack of diagonals in a game that doesn't consider diagonals seems silly, right? It's like, well, if this is diagonals, then I couldn't have been here. It's like, yeah, but we're not using those. Duh.
the only bit it would be taking advantage is if your GM didn't account for diagonals, but then promptly never moved diagonally ever.
Right, yeah.
Which I hope they were. I really hope they were.
If you're taking advantage of moving diagonal to gain extra feats in a game that isn't considering the use of diagonals anyway, you didn't gain anything. You just gained what you would have been able to get if you were using diagonal rules. It just flat out moved further. In what way? In what way? It's 10 spaces. Like I said, if you do the 10 by 10 grid, like actual space, I understand the math, right? But on a 10 by 10 grid, if everything can move one space in any direction, there's nothing closer or further away moving diagonal. because all the closest points to anything is a straight line. Like, if nothing else is in relation to a diagonal or using it differently, then there's no gain. I'm trying to understand you guys. That's the thing, right? I understand actual space. I understand the how it actually works. Okay. That's fine then. So, moving on then. Don't act like I never listened to you guys. So Gen Con, we'll see any interesting things. And as far as like the D&D situation, I don't want to bash on D&D, but I legitimately, the only arguments I've ever considered, there's not even good arguments. Every argument is always just, it's easier to homebrew in D&D than it is other games, which I just flat out disagree with, plainly. People only think it feels that way because in D&D you don't care about balance in the first place, so people give each other whatever, and they're like, man, I love that item you gave me, it was really, really strong. And the other guy's like, yeah, I know, right? It was a cool item. Yeah, you're just killing all the monsters so easy now.
Or is it also like easier to homebrew, or is there just more of it?
That's also
like
just, well, a lot of people argue that it's easier to homebrew because D&D runs off some very basic, systems. Mostly, it's addition to a D20 roll. Is like,
it's just, yeah, D20, and then you add like a little number, and that's it.
But most of the things that people actually like that are homebrew are like, oh, I took this ability from this other thing and put it in an item. Isn't that cool? And they're like, yeah, that's totally cool. I find Pathfinder 2e easy to homebrew, robust system. I disagree that it's easy to homebrew. Whether you find it or not, I would say it's not generally useful. And there's a lot of intimidating aspects to it, like how their balancing algorithm even works. I would say if you play it enough, it's not as bad as a lot of people tend to think it is. I definitely wouldn't call it easy though. But if you look at generally other items of the same level and give it the same things, then yeah, it's kind of easy in that regard. But not everyone can comprehend information in that same way.
It's also like a game that won't really regard the same, I guess, need of homebrew, but also I think it's just like what we're saying, and just a good point of it is easy to homebrew. We just don't give a shit about the rules. It's just true. You don't care about them in the first place, so you can just throw out the stuff you don't like. So then people claim, oh, it's so easy to homebrew. Look at all the stuff I didn't care about.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the D&D homebrew, is just, there's no balance. No one balances in D&D 5e. Not really.
It's all on the fly homebrew, in my experience. It's all homebrew where a GM does it and then realizes in the moment, oh, I don't like this. I didn't account for the situation. I will change that.
Yeah, and no one talks about that. How many homebrews have GMs had to change because they were actually broken? You hear those stories, but people don't talk about that in the conversation. It's a situation that I find taxing, to say the least. And that's the whole point, right? Is you're still that Pathfinder player, regardless of whether you're right. you're still that Pathfinder player because you can't help but compare, because everyone has to compare to D&D, because that's what everyone's frame of reference is.
That's what everything is just kind of called, you know? It's the, oh, you're playing D&D. It's the, oh, you're gonna go play on your Nintendo.
Well, and it's
Because
not
it's the
even...
thing I say to my parents when I'm like gonna play tabletop. It's like, I'm just gonna go play D&D. But even then, it's like, especially for Pathfinder, it's Pathfinder D&D were very interchangeable given its origins. So it is just kind of they're the most compared because just 3.5, D&D 3.5, then Pathfinder.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is it's not even just like the synonymous nature D&D has with tabletop. It's more of, for a large number of people out there, it's the only game they've played, so that's their point of reference. It's the same thing happens in video games. We got the Dark Souls-esque genre because we look at games and we're like, that's kind of similar to Dark Souls, because we're looking at two things that are kind of the same, and we associate it with the most popular thing in that genre. That's why we also have the vampire survivor-like games, even though they've been bouncing around terminology like bullet heaven and stuff like that. Everyone's still just like, it's like vampire survivors, because that's just how we associate things as a species. We just associate things by how similar they are to other things.
It's the easiest when you have like the two options. You can point to like a genre term that is oftentimes disputed and argued and even poorly defined, or a term that maybe even has like 3 or 4 accepted terms for like the same thing with like minute differences, or one catch-all that is annoying, but it's a catch-all because it's just like, oh, it's like Dark Souls, because you can point at it and be like, yeah, that has like the base ideas of Dark Souls. You're like, okay, I know roughly what to expect then. It's like Vampire Survivors. I know what to expect.
Yeah, Metroidvania, exactly. It's like Metroid, yes, or Castlevania, aka Metroidvania. So
yeah, I know exactly what I'm getting into when I hear that descriptor.
So, you know, when something is being compared to tabletop in general, you kind of just have to use, it's similar to D&D in this way. And we were talking about it earlier, but Alex is like talking about how there's that one game that's going to get a Kickstarter in August, and he's like, it seems kind of similar to D&D, but maybe that's just the language they're using and it's not similar at all. We don't know, because honestly, it could just be like D&D, like everything else seems to be, or maybe it's just a D20 system, but people can't associate anything outside of D20 from D&D. So
exactly, because that's
who knows?
That's exactly it. Like, because the moment I read, because I was reading through the articles and like the press stuff of it, and like the designers talking about it, they all say it in literally the same way. In the same way a game journalist talks about, it's the Dark Souls of blank. You know, like that kind of language where they say anybody familiar with D&D will feel right at home. They all say that, where then they immediately next sentence say D20 system with a modifier you add to it, and that's it. And it's like, okay, there's no other system that gives D&D. It's just that core dice system means Dungeons and Dragons. And are they only calling it that because you have to? I think so. Because like that's just the search term. Because if you don't use Dungeons and Dragons in your search term, you know, no one's gonna find it, or no one's gonna care either. Sadly.
So yeah, it's the thing, right? So you have to compare your game to D&D, if anything, just for frame of reference. And that's why D&D people are constantly annoyed when they're like, hey, have you tried this game? It does what D&D does, but better. And they're like, why is everyone saying their game is better than D&D? And it's like, because D&D is a bad game. That's why. It is broken. There's no sense of balance. The power gain in that game can be considered like the how breakable D&D is honestly its biggest parts. That's the things people like the most about D&D. How easy it is to break the game. If you say literally anything else is your favorite part of D&D, there's a better TTRPG out there for you. So it's like, I like the narratives. You can tell a narrative in any game, and there's other games that are just stronger, narratively focused games that give your player choices more weight in the game, in the system. They're like, well, I really like the lore of D&D. What do you mean the lore of D&D? It's the Sword Coast plus the Underdark.
They also, yeah, the lore that they kind of ignore, because they got rid of it, apparently.
Well, yeah, also
they're going somewhere else.
They are constantly rewriting it, and now they've even changed it to Greyhawk, I believe, is
they went back to an older place. Which apparently Greyhawk is cool, I guess, to people who like or care about
I've heard
D&D
good
lore.
things about it from people who like it, so
It's the Gygax ridden place. That's all I know.
And yeah, Harpushido, correct. Every video on D&D is how to fix it or break it. Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange? Like, and the people who are just like, I just like D&D, stop telling me whatever. It's just like, we are just trying to give you a little bit more variety. We're just trying to let you see that you can be having a fun somewhere else. But it's like teaching anyone anything, right? Some people you literally could tell the right answer to, and they won't understand until they figure it out themselves. And that's just the same thing. It's the same principle.
I just get so fucking baffled about it's the idea that people have, literally, that's the point I'm making, Dead Phoenix. It's being married to one thing, because I keep seeing it. It's every week I can come to Table Talk with a new fucking example of it, with how prevalent it is. I feel like everybody could, of just seeing people talk about, when it comes to like, hey, people should talk about Pathfinder, because it was something I was seeing. It was a person talking about, like, describing making the same character. It was some like fucking, it was the cat girl from Delicious in Dungeon. If you're making it in 5th edition and you're making it in Pathfinder, it was a good thread on the differences and like the choices you would make, and how interesting of a character it'd be in Pathfinder compared to D&D. And I think, like, going through a couple threads I saw, there's one person who said the thing that's been living in my head rent-free for a week of, I don't know, it's really hard to switch from 5th edition. It's kind of like breaking up with my girlfriend and then dating her cousin. It's like, why? You don't have to do that. You can just also play Pathfinder. It's not breaking up. It's just playing a different game. It's also, or it's just an addition. Why do people feel like they have to only like one thing? You can just like manything. You don't have to have one thing you like. You can just be multifaceted.
What if you like her cousin more? What is the
That
point
too.
of that argument?
It was ridiculous. I didn't like
happened?
it. It's been living in my head.
It's just, it's like, okay, but really, what if you like her cousin more? I don't understand what your point is.
In multiple ways, it's a weird point, because, like, if you need to break up with them, you should. But on the second point, the metaphor, I think, is inherently stupid. We're talking about art forms. It's like, it's like, no one talks about this way with fucking video games.
Well,
because they're not
actually.
Some people are like, I only play one thing.
It's like Call of Duty versus whatever.
I only play Call of Duty, and it's then they look at, then they're like, there's no good games coming out, and you're like, well, there's these games. I don't play those. Then stop complaining. There's so many games, and you only play one thing. But it's just, you can like other things. It's okay. It's not a real thing. It's not gonna have feelings. It's a product. I don't like it. I hate it. Just have a folder of tabletop games. Have a bookshelf of tabletop games. Just like things. I don't know. It annoys me.
Yeah, I don't know. And the thing is, like, I understand tabletop is an investment. It's an investment of time, money, energy, but you play new video games, which is time and money, right? So if you're willing to play new video games, but you're not willing to play new tabletop games, then I don't know what to say. And if it's just like, well, I don't want to learn new rules, you learn new rules every time you add a homebrew into your game. Every time you have to figure out what a new spell does, you're learning new rules. So tell me exactly. If you're just like, I don't want to play other games, I just want to play D&D, I guess more power to you. But you have to understand that you're literally sitting here going, I only like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I don't like any other kinds of food. Like, but you're willing to put any other kind of food on your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to get that diversity, you know? It's like, okay, but there's just other combinations of foods that do everything you want, like, better. It's like eventually they're no longer eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's just something else that has peanut butter and jelly, like, on the fringes of whatever it is, you know?
Just enough to still call it that, but it's completely unrecognizable at this point.
Yeah. And people don't like core D&D, actually. Even like there's people who I've seen argue against the 3 action system, and I'm just like, what do you mean? And they're like, I don't like it. I don't like how I run up to the enemy and then I swing, or like I'm on the enemy, I swing twice, and then I just don't do anything with my 3rd action because the balance in Pathfinder makes the 3rd strike almost impossible to hit. And it's just like, so in D&D, you would rather just sit there and do your attack action, maybe your bonus action, if you have a bonus action to use, and then not use your movement action, right? That's what you're telling me right now? So what did you lose?
You didn't lose anything. Like, you're using the same amount of actions in D&D. In fact, you just get to choose which ones, because sometimes in D&D you just don't use your movement. In Pathfinder, when you don't use your movement, you get to spend your movement to do something else. So it's actually better. And sometimes, if you're not going to attack, you get to move more, or 3 times. You get to move even further. So I don't know. It's the same. It's like a very similar amount of action economy as D&D. The difference is in Pathfinder, you actually get to just do more with the action because they're not separated into 2 tiers of types of action. That's the difference. They're not just in the camp of action, bonus action, movement. That's the difference. Yeah, you know what? What if maybe it'd be more successful if you had the Final Fantasy 14 copy pasta, but for Pathfinder?
Right.
You can play it for free.
You can play it for free. All the rules are free on Archive of Nethys. You know what Paizo would never do? Charge you $70 for an errata and make it their big announcement for a year. This is the biggest product D&D is releasing, by the way. Their biggest product they're releasing in 2024 is just an errata. And like, before anyone says, and I doubt anyone here would, but before anyone might say, well, Pathfinder's doing the same thing with Remaster, you can get all the Remaster rules for free online.
I'm not gonna, like, I would actually spend money on the player core if I had the money right now. I don't. My goal is down the line to have the Paizo books. Right now, the only thing I really have a use for is the lore books, which I'm buying as a choice. The rule books I don't need because I play virtually, so I just don't have a use for them. And I don't want to have the clutter because I don't like owning things I'm not using. Personal choice. But it's a choice to buy them because they're free and I like the company. But if I want to use theoretically the 5th edition rules, I would have to buy them, or alternatively use their subscription service and have my GM buy them. That's the difference. I have to make sure somebody has to pay for it, and pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah, it's dumb. And I so what do we talk about? We're talking about the biggest news. We're looking at it objectively, and we're looking at it as if I was still playing D&D, what does this bring me? And we have to make fun of it because it's so bad. That's it, plain and simple. Yeah, that's true. I will say, like, Legacy Core Rulebook was actually really bad. I remember my early struggles with Pathfinder thanks to that. Archive of Nethys saved me a lot of effort, for sure.
We did have a lot of complaints about the original core book for Pathfinder, which is, again, D&D, like, fans, D&D content creators, pay attention. Here we are, people that make fun of it, openly critiquing the game we love. The core book had a lot of problems. Its layout was a little goofy, and one of the issues I personally had as somebody with some pretty heavy ADHD issues is it was really, really hard to just sit down and like read through the book, because how the text layout was centered is really hard to actually like focus on the layout, because the font choice and then the actual like flow of the text was just really weird. And so it was just hard to focus. And that's not an isolated issue. There was a lot of people who had similar issues, including like people with dyslexia had a similar problem. And they made that problem known. And you know what Paizo did? They fixed it. The layout's a lot better. I paged through the Player Core 1 actually when I was in Texas at a pretty big game store. Player Core 1, leagues better. It's so nice. Also, you know what's a nice product they have too that I was really happy to find it. They have cheaper, tiny player like core books. They're so like nice. They're these just tiny, like much lighter versions of the core rulebook that are paperback, so they're just half priced and just smaller that you can just page through like a lot easier. Which is just a cool product to sell. I've never seen another tabletop game do that.
And yeah, wait, man, I would agree. Archive of Nethys does just also need to get more on board with getting updated faster. I think Paizo needs to invest more into it, because I feel like that's one of their strengths. But true, I'll say, it was a few months for sure that they were just behind, which was really unfortunate. But even then, nothing in the remaster changing was anything that was like truly fixing the game like people really wanted with D&D 2024. Because that's the difference, right? Pathfinder Remaster was more of a we're un-D&D-ifying our game, with some classes, admittedly, getting some tune-ups that, to be fair, made them a lot easier, funner to play, but it wasn't necessary for the overall sake of gameplay and balance, and honestly, people still enjoyed previous versions anyway, so, you know.
Yeah, like, none of these classes are broken. Like, I wouldn't call any of the classes in Pathfinder, like, the same level as 5th edition Ranger. You know? Like, that class has a reputation of being egregiously bad. There's nothing like that in Pathfinder. It's like, they release this remaster, everything's getting shifted, which basically, to be completely honest, the real fundamental difference in actual flow is things have a different name, which in use means it's harder to look things up, because you're like, what the fuck, is this thing gone? What's the name?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, one word of this like little like 3-word thing got changed, and you're like, damn it, okay. So you just have to learn the name change. That's the difference. And then alongside that, almost like to make up for it, they're like, oh, by the way, we made this class operate a little smoother. It's like, oh, that's sweet of you, Paizo. Thank you. Oh, you made cleric so good. Thank you. This is nice. And then now they're going to do the same to champion, which they need to because they took out, alignment. But also champion is looking like a class I'm going to actually like enjoy instead of a class I'm going to look at and be like, not my playstyle. Champion looks really fun. They're gonna just make Swashbuckler more like smooth to
That
operate.
one's very exciting, honestly.
Yeah, they're gonna make Oracle like a lot nicer, because if you're gonna make a class that is very much like risk reward, you should actually make the reward a reward, not on the same level of every other class. I understand the logic, but that's not how a thing like a glass cannon should operate. A glass cannon should have a little bit of a higher power level if you are going to be operating at a smaller, health pool or weakness. That's just how it goes. So it's just, it's little bonuses to almost to make up for the I guess the disruption that a remaster would put. And also, it's just because they listened to the community and were like, here are the problems you guys cited. And we agreed with a chunk of them. They disagreed with some, because they said as much, I think, for Sorcerer. That they just disagreed, and they explained why they disagreed. We might disagree with some of their assessment, because I still think Sorcerer needs a little bit of a tune-up.
I think it needs a little bit more oomph to make it unique, but
yeah,
they wanted a class that is easy to play, so whatever.
You can still have a class that is easy to play, but you should make the Bloodlines have a little bit more impact. And you can have both.
They have new Bloodline things they're adding, so...
That's something. I just think the base Bloodlines should be more interesting, because a lot of them aren't. Both aren't mutually exclusive. That's my critique with Paizo. Yeah, I know that we both agree on that, but like, it feels like Paizo's just like their methodology is a lot of times, and we've talked about it with them, with the designers, is a lot of times with them being like, well, while I'm here, and then they're like getting it done. Like they're just working on something because it's convenient and it's going to be in like just this one book.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. And in D&D 2024, it doesn't really feel like that at all. But someone asked a good question, I think, that we can answer is, are you all excited for the new fantasy RPGs from the OGL nonsense, Daggerheart, MCDM, DC 20, etc.? I don't know.
I only know Daggerheart.
I don't know if excited would be the proper word I would use, because I am tired of D&D and anything that feels like D&D, to be honest, narratively speaking, as much as I am like mechanically speaking. A better D&D would be good, but is a better D&D necessarily better to me than a Pathfinder 2E? I don't really think so. I don't know. But I do think that these new games, the fact that people are talking about them and are excited about them, are good for the hobby overall. And if we can subdivide D&D into multiple games not run by Wizards of the Coast, I think that's only a good thing. The way MCDM has been talked about makes me feel like it's being a little overhyped, but if it is as good as a lot of people are saying it is, all the better. Daggerheart, I think, definitely needs some more spit and polish. There's a lot of things people are bouncing off of, but I think Daggerheart is actually the game that a lot of people who play D&D want to have. Actually, it has a lot of the same trappings of D&D, but more in a narrative first style that really doesn't apply the same rigidness that more rules heavy games play. The downside of Daggerheart is it's just not going to be a game that you can break, I feel like, in a way that D&D players will find exciting, which is what people are not going to want to do. And then DC 20... Sorry, go ahead.
I just feel like it's interesting because I keep hearing, from what it sounds like, I don't know if DC 20 is the exception to this, but like whenever I hear the idea of a game that's breaking off from like D&D, it always sounds like they're going narrative first kind of thing. And are there any of these games that are going like we're D&D but crunchier?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe DC 20, but I'm not sure, because a lot of people are really trying to capture that idea that tabletop's been following forever, which is how do we make tabletop flow smoother? Because that's been the goal for tabletop for a long time. But the problem is is DC 20 genuinely is headed in that direction, in my opinion. Good, honestly.
Okay. And I gotta say, also MCDM, if it sounds interesting, separating from 5e to not be a mod, cool. That means I'd be significantly more interested. Though the acronym makes it sound like a Minecraft mod. So like that's what throws me off every time I hear it.
Yeah, well, I do think MCDM is like just a work in progress name.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it
imagine.
stands for. It might be Matt Colville DM. I don't know.
Okay.
But
I
Matt
just
Colville's
I
the
know
one who's doing
literally
it,
nothing.
so.
I know nothing about these games like at all. The only D&D adjacent game I know is literally one I talked about for the Stormlight Archive, and I literally am, like I said, was apprehensive the moment I was like, "Uh-oh, this could be like D&D." Damn it. Because
Yeah,
I just want a
right.
cool game like fuck it, the Stormlight Archives, because it's a series that has some of the dopest like combat I've ever read about, with characters like, you know, wall running, altering gravity, creating like full transmuting stuff from one thing into another, like genuinely fantastic magic systems and like super fun like high stakes combat, because weapons that if they're fighting and it touches you, you basically die. And so it's like, okay, that sounds like a really cool concept. And then they're like, D20 system, D&D. It's like, that doesn't transfer.
It's like, it's like the Final Fantasy 14 came out with
Yeah.
a TTRPG. I was like, oh, Final Fantasy, perfect. I think they have some interesting systems, and it's a D&D clone. And I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. It's like that doesn't track. Like that doesn't have the same feel. Cause like if I want to do some hype shit, like if anything, if I heard that this game's gonna operate a bit more like Pathfinder, I'd be like, okay, all right. Cause this game feels a little crunchy because like the fun of it is getting to do really weird stuff with powers. Cause like, like it seems to operate on a system of here's a basic description of your power, now come up with a bunch of really creative methods of utilizing your power, which sounds like it works perfectly with Pathfinder 2e's like feat system.
right.
And it's like, all right, that would slot in great. Or maybe even like a Fabula Ultima style, like rules light with crunch.
Yeah.
You know, like a style like that. But then I hear D&D like, and I'm like, uh-oh. Ugh.
I'm also
Man.
legitimately just tired of like old-fashioned Tolkien-esque high fantasy.
Same. That's why I like this one. Because it's not.
Like, what I actually enjoy about Pathfinder is more and more they're getting into more interesting, weird things that are breaking a lot of those conventions.
I love that too.
Inventor, one of my favorite classes. It feels real fun to play, and thematically super interesting. Even with the addition of like the Circe ancestry, it's like, yeah, sure, it's a bug people, they're interesting, but now it's like, oh, they also like raise these parasites that are a whole archetype into themselves called the Ostili. Okay, you got me. That sounds actually a little bit more interesting. These magic consuming bugs with these magic consuming parasites. Okay, I can get behind that. It's like legitimately right now, I am more excited to play Numenera than I am DC 20 or MCDM, just because honestly, actually
vibe is
symbiote.
different.
Yes, I'm aware. But like because it just like thematically sounds interesting. It sounds something new. I'm like, I'll try it. This is a game from 2013.
The game system, like the world you described, sounded really cool. Like those are all aesthetics I liked. I literally, because of your description and me looking it up, I grabbed the Steam game, which is something that's been recommended to me on Steam repeatedly. Which, like, I mean, that's also the reason I was so pumped when I found out that the Stormlight Archives are gonna have a tabletop game, because it's literally the thing that makes it so good is you're like, there is zero Tolkien style high fantasy in this. This is something wholly unique and interesting. This is one guy doing his completely own thing. And then I hear tabletop game that's not doing its own thing, and I get worried, and I'm like, damn it. That kind of goes against what makes the book so good. It feels like you should be doing something really kind of weird and innovative. But like that wouldn't sell well, would it? Which is the sad part about a lot of tabletop design.
Oyman says, I don't know if anybody said anything like this, but 5e game breakers should look into Lancer. Yeah, that's a good point. Lancer has so many real wacky combinations you can do with some of the mech designs that I think there's a lot of real fun gamifying you can have of Lancer that still fits exactly into the style game that Lancer is. So, for sure, the thing is, D&D is just a sandbox, and everyone is just so excited to have a box that is like, I can just do whatever I want in this thing. No one's gonna care. It's just a sandbox. I can't break anything that didn't have a foundation to start with, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it's so silly. And everyone who's come over who's played in, like, this has been a recent trend. People are like, I played Pathfinder, and they're like, I really liked it. And some people are like, I liked it, and then I found out I didn't like it because I couldn't break the game, or I couldn't design game breaking items or unique items like I used to in D&D. So we went back to D&D, and it's just like, so you just, you know, you just want to play a game that is less strict with the balancing, which there are games that do it, but that's the point. And so it's not really out of balance. So yeah, I think tabletop is still just very much infantile. It's like, wow, everyone played World of Warcraft, and then Blizzard was a shitty company, and they're like, oh, what other games are there? They played some other games, and like, this isn't World of Warcraft, and then they just went back to World of Warcraft, you know? Even though there are other games that were trying some new, really interesting things. Yeah, there were a lot of cash grab games, a lot of big stinkers too, but there were some really good MMOs that did some really interesting things that got completely ignored in all of it. And it's only by sheer perseverance and the fact that Yoshi P is the GOAT that Final Fantasy 14 has managed to get to where it is today. Those people use aimbots and think they're good players. You know what? That's a legitimately fascinating take, and I think that's a way of looking at it.
That's a good analogy, honestly.
Yeah, it's like the people who I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, this multiplayer with Buddha recently, and we had a party member who every attack could kill an enemy just instantly. And it's a team game where we're fighting hordes of enemies. And the thing was, they were like not killing every enemy possible because they knew they could just do it all, so they were just kind of letting everyone play the game, coming in to save the day when it was needed at the last second. And I'm like, how is that fun to you? Because you're obviously not just killing everything right away because you know everyone else is just trying to kill things. But you're just not playing the game. You're not using any of the systems. You're just breaking it. How can people enjoy that? And it's the same thing with people who cheat in like the Dark Souls games. Like they go into the PvP and they're just like, oh man, I enjoy killing people. And they use all these broken things. And then when someone manages to still beat them regardless of that, which you always love to see, they're like, fuck this game. I hate this game. And it's just like, you don't want to play a game. You just want to feel like you're better than other people, which is really shitty, to be honest. If it's a super high level guy, no, we were playing on the highest difficulty and they were just one-shotting everything. It wasn't super high level. They were just cheating.
Yeah. Like I don't get that type of player, and I think that's just a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's legitimately a lot of these D&D people who like these really broken builds or whatever, they just want to feel superior to everyone. And in fact, I ran Adventures League, and the number one thing that I saw was players coming in to play the game with running really broken builds, and their characters were always pompous or trying to be really cool, or the player themselves was just being obnoxiously like, Oh, don't worry. I could take them all out if we really wanted to, guys. Like, I could do it. I'm really, really strong. And it's like, that, you just want to feel good about yourself. And I get that for sure. But we're not playing the same game, you and I. You feel like you need a confidence boost, and you're just trying to get it in any way possible. I am playing a game to be challenged and to tell an interesting story. Yeah, nothing personnel, kid. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same reason. It's like the reason challenge runs exist is to show how good a player is at a game. They can enjoy themselves, but I wouldn't want to be at their table. Yeah, for sure. You know, that's why I'm saying we're playing the different games. They can do what they want. They can do whatever they feel like they need to do, but we're not gonna enjoy the same things. And there's no answer to that, to be honest. Some people just want to feel good and don't want to experience anything in a way. They don't want to figure it out, or figure it out in a way that isn't just breaking the game. Like, challenge runs were designed to show how skillful people were. So a challenge run winner, no one is annoyed at. No one is annoyed at people except if they're really bad and they get that envy, which we do see as well. But generally, standard people aren't annoyed by people who win challenge runs. They're like, man, that's impressive. That's really good. That's really cool.
The only example of a challenge run like causing anger is a famous example of a Final Fantasy VII challenge run where a guy got a stupidly popular like forum because the challenge was get to level 100 in the reactor at the beginning of the game. He got a stupidly popular thread, kept lying that he was continuing it, but like, I'm doing it off like I'm just not documenting it. Maybe you guys should pay me to do it. And then one guy, it's a story of Dick Tree is his name. And he's like, fuck you. I'm so annoyed that like you are like carrying this on. You're lying. I'm gonna do this out of spite. And then did it, got to level 100 in the reactor out of pure spite at this one guy, like on a forum, for just leading everyone on for so long. And the end stream where he did it on Twitch was like a speech of him at like the level up stream of him just saying, fuck you, I did this because I hate you. This is the proof that like some of us will actually do things like this. It was great. It's a great moment in history.
Yeah, so
that's literally the only example, is because it's the only reason you make someone mad in a thing like that is because you didn't do it. It's because it's unobtrusive. But you're playing a cooperative game with people. You're with other human beings who you're meant to amplify the fun of. You're not there to win a thing. You're there to have fun in a social situation.
Yeah. It's I don't know. And that's the thing, right? And those are the kinds of people who maybe D&D is legitimately the best game for them, right? People have broken this game so forwards and backwards over their knee that GMs are like, man, I'm such a good DM. I gave my player this really good item that they really enjoyed, and it made them broken. But we have those memories, and that's great. And it's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, that's fine. That's what Tabletop's about, is those stories. But you didn't actually do anything really in the end. You weren't playing with any sort of rule. You weren't doing something in the system fascinating or interesting. You gave them something that broke most of the game's conventions, and the player enjoyed it. And it's like, I've had a GM give me broken things before for playing D&D 5e that did not make me happier at all. What made me happier was how I played my character in an interesting way around interesting personalities and stuff. The GM could not see, like, I legitimately played in their game. My character did not wear any armor, drove them insane. They kept trying to give me anything that would be armor or increase my armor class. And the thing was, I was enjoying it because I didn't have armor. I was enjoying running through combats, doing my best not to get hit by just playing well or by role-playing really well. And that's what I enjoy, but they couldn't comprehend the it's like, how can you enjoy having worse AC? You know? Absolutely couldn't comprehend it. So there is that. And that's the thing. Like, and to be fair, I'm not trying to bash on D&D GMs who make really cool items for their players to play in the game, and that those players enjoy it. I'm not necessarily making fun of or bashing them for doing it. My statement is more of, it's made on this false idea that it can only be done in D&D. The thing they create typically broke the conventions that D&D was originally made to do anyway. And you could do that in any other system. I can make broken items in Pathfinder. But the funny thing is in Pathfinder, it's actually easier to make broken items and to understand why they're broken and what they do, and give a player a broken item at one level that will soon no longer be a broken item, which is actually more interesting. But in D&D, a broken item is a broken item pretty much all the way through the game.
Yeah, because shit scales. Like, items scale excessively in Pathfinder. In D&D, it's like, what, at worst, you're going to get like, oh, my weapon has an extra +1. It's now a +2. Oh. And maybe it gives you an alternate ability. In Pathfinder, it's like, all right, there are 5 separate actions that are possible with this item. It has charges for this. Like, you look through any of the fucking things I have in my sheet for my wizard, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
My stash of books, my lore items, it's like, it's crazy. They have a lot of options each day that I can use with all of them. It's complicated and crazy. And those things, a little nuts. They're not even busted. If I had them a few levels ago, busted as fuck because of how much they boost. Right now, it's not as bad. It's because I'm at the appropriate level for it.
Yeah, more or less. And that's the thing, right? That's where it's like, why does it have to be D&D in the end? Meanwhile, license level 6 Gorgon with DC 17 and Impaler Nailgun, it's just about okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is I don't want to harsh anyone's mellow when it comes to like enjoyment. You're free to enjoy things however you want, and if D&D makes it easier for you to have fun, then you should play D&D, plain and simple. But that doesn't mean that you can't have more fun in another system. And people pointing that out isn't necessarily bad. It's correct to play whatever brings you the most amount of fun. But if that's only fun given to you because you have a misconception on how or what you can do in whatever other kind of game or system, then you're actually just kind of missing out in the end, regardless. Like, don't get me wrong, I play tabletop games that some people really love, and they'll tell me up, down, and left and right what really cool things you can do in that game that I may not have considered while playing that game, and I'll still be like, yeah, but I really just don't like the core systems in the game anyway. So it's like, I know I could probably do some other cool things, but I played the game, and that's how it is. And I play Pathfinder, and I feel like I get a little bit more out of it. And if another game comes out that does more than Pathfinder, then it's like, then that's the game I'll talk about instead. liking D&D is tantamount to murder. I know. I mean, that's also a very annoying conversation a lot of people have, that like the rules lawyer for Pathfinder is really, really bad about making as well, which is if you enjoy D&D, or if you're playing D&D or buying anything D&D, you're just helping a bad company do bad things. And all I can say to that is the thing I say about all those kinds of ideas. Rich companies will be rich regardless of whether you give them your money or not.
They'll be rich regardless, and it's up to your own personal morality whether or not you want to give them money. It shouldn't be dictated by other people. Make that it's your own personal choice whether or not. Don't have it dictated by strangers.
I think it's very viable to separate the art from the artist, even though that's a big conversation that goes on nowadays. I think as long as the art isn't representative of the negative things, you know, then you can enjoy it. It's a very different thing. And if D&D collapses, neither Wizards nor Hasbro will go under or be upset about it.
They have Magic the Gathering to fund them. They're
Magic
fine.
the Gathering makes 10 times the amount D&D does. Or more. I can't remember what the statistic was. It was an absurd
It's
amount
absurdly amount. They make a
Yeah.
lot of money through Magic, and it's a lot. And at the very least, that game is fun. Though I also give them zero money, and I plan to give them zero money.
Yeah,
through
and
that.
I
That's why
think
I'm
that's
playing it.
completely viable too for people who don't want to do it. Yeah, that's fine. You're free to do so. I just don't feel like if you bought the D&D book, you're actually hurting anything. For
Yeah,
anyone.
exactly. It's why I my strong opinion is it is a personal moral evaluation on yourself, not other people. It is up to
Yeah.
you if you want to give money to a thing and a person. If you can make that step, it shouldn't be up to someone else and to other people, because it's not that's not really what it is.
I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily look at it like giving money to a person. It's not like you're going up to Wizards of the Coast and paying for it at the company or whatever. It's more of like, if you can spend money for happiness, do so. Plain and simple. As long as that happiness is not infringing on anyone else's happiness, do so. If your argument is, well, giving them more money lets them do more shitty things, that's just factually not true, because they can just make money elsewhere, as rich people tend to do. Like, the whole stock market is literally money making money. That's all it is. It's all theoretical. It doesn't... anyone with enough money and capital can do that. You know, you cannot stop people from making money. Imagine if we lived in a world where you could actually stop people from making money, right? Wouldn't that be a better world, honestly? But it's just impossible, because
Very impossible.
you just can't. It's just there's ways of making money that you have absolutely no influence of as a shopper. Now, if it's like a small business, that's a different story, obviously. If you are holding the keys to someone actually becoming rich, then yeah, sure. But that's not what anyone is talking about in these situations. We're always talking about corporations.
It's always big corporations, never like, the Patreon of a person who is actually a piece of shit. It's usually like a big corporation that, your $20 isn't going to make a dent.
So, if someone wants to buy D&D stuff, don't give them a hard time. If someone's just like, I don't want to hear why Pathfinder is good, just don't bother them further. I'm not going to tell you shouldn't try to make people aware of what a game is, but it's just like, if someone gives you a hard no, take a step back. It's not that hard.
Just approaching people hard like that is weird. I personally think one of the best methods of Pathfinder exposure we have is there's that one Twitter account, I forget his name, it's like spicy something, it's the guy with the pepper profile picture. I just like his comparison stuff that he does because it's really good. Just like, here's a quick comparison. Here's the class combination, statistical class combination for D&D. Here's how many characters you could make in of every option in Pathfinder. Like millions.
Right.
Oh shit, damn. It's like those little things like that. It's nice, open. People can opt into it if they want to. If that interests them, they can look further. I think it's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I agree. That's I know whom you're speaking about.
I forget their name.
I would like to shout
definitely
them
have
out since
interacted
I think
with
this is
stuff.
the second time that they've been shouted out.
I've definitely liked their stuff, so I can find it in a second.
It's Pip the Spicy.
Yes, there they are.
Pip the Spicy at Spicy Encounters. So if you want someone good on Twitter who typically posts some pretty good stuff, that I feel anyway, in my opinion, Pip the Spicy probably a good one to follow. But yeah, I don't know. I again, like, I don't try to be overly political on the channel, but it's when it comes to tabletop and when it comes to like people enjoying tabletop, I would much rather people just be free to play whatever game they want to play, even if it's D&D. We'll make fun of D&D. I'll make fun of the system, but I will not make fun of the people playing D&D. You know, I'll point out the inconsistencies with how they run things. I'll point out the inconsistencies with what they believe the system offers versus what it actually offers. But I won't say D&D people are bad people or that they shouldn't play their game. They will, and they should. That's all it is, really. And if there's annoying, like, even politics stuff, like, man, I really hate this don't buy things from rich people because it only helps them grow kind of arguments, because those aren't even necessarily, like, it's like saying don't buy McDonald's because it only makes McDonald's grow. McDonald's doesn't make most of their money from food sales. They make the grandest majority of what they make renting properties for McDonald's to be on.
The people that make the money are the people operating the thing itself. It's like for grocery stores. If you buy a product from the store, you're not shipping money to whatever company the brand you're doing, because the stuff that you're buying has already been paid for from the distributor. Like, it's already been purchased. You are purchasing an existing stock that has been priced by the building you are in that company. So you are giving your money to whatever store you are currently in. That is what is profiting off of your money, not the manufacturer of the product. And that's just for physical sales. There are very specific situations where you spending money on a thing will be a direct financial transaction to the creator of the product, and that's rare. Usually it's a direct subscription-based service that's like to a person, or because they're an indie creator in some way. That's it. If it's corporate, you are usually the person who is currently selling you the product is the person getting the money, not the actual IP holder. They are making money somewhere else. They're like 2 steps behind.
No worries, Bushido. We actually got to end here soon anyway.
Yes.
We just kind of
I got
overtalked.
stuff to do.
It was just fascinating conversation, and more just like a point that I understand the mentality. I understand that if not interacting with a company is typically one of the best ways to deal with this kind of situation. Like, if you don't do anything at all. But I wouldn't treat it as spending money is inherently bad on this thing, because I can hold that position, that, like, the understanding of how the economic model works. I have a business degree, by the way. As I that's what triggered all of this. And then also I do also have the opinion of I will not give Wizard of the Coast $1 because I don't like them, and I do not want to give the money because that is a decision I have personally made within my own framework of my mind. I will not deal or like bother anybody who does, because that is not my business, and I frankly don't care what someone else does.
So that's the difference. Like I said, it's my own value is my own, and I feel like other people should operate roughly the same.
Yeah, I'll never get Ziply because they've annoyed us so much at our house, just knocking like, "Hey, you want Ziply?" No matter how many times I say no, and just getting bothered. I'll never buy Ziply, but
Yeah.
I'm doing it out of spite and not with the idea that I am actually hurting their company.
No, you're not hurting their company. You're just like, I do not want to give them money. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
It like that's the difference. It's like I'm not going to give this thing my business. I'm going to go with an alternative.
Yeah. So, you don't want
that's normal.
You don't want to give Wizards your money? I completely understand. But
I'm
also not going to besmirch people who do. It's
me neither.
They're not doing anything actually wrong. So,
yeah.
It's
mostly they're probably just putting money in the pockets of a local game store, which you should always do. They are good people.
Yeah, that's actually very true, honestly. Buying a book at a game store will just give that game store money. Granted, then they'll go on to buy more things from Wizards. So, but
the cycle continues. However, if you are going to do it, buy it local. They deserve your money more than Amazon.
True. Buy because local. Go to your local game stores.
Because how they operate is specifically they do not get it through Amazon. They have a special thing that they get it directly from whatever company they're dealing with. Distributor from they get it from Wizards of the Coast, Games Workshop, whoever. They have special distributors from the company itself that gives them better prices and better deals. And you should buy it from a local game store themselves. You were giving them more money. They need your business because they are usually good people, unless they suck. Because some do.
Some do, for sure.
Some do. But for the ones in my town, I love them. They're all great people, and I give them my business when I can.
But yeah, so quite the stream. Talked about a lot of random stuff. Argued about geometry, which I will just say here at the end, I do understand diagonal on a grid is technically more space. If anyone was ever unsure, I do understand the math behind that.
So I'll say understand the math behind it. I'm visualizing it. I don't like it. That's because I failed geometry and I hear axis and I'm like half understanding what that means. And
So that's all I'll say. Not gonna argue anything more. I'll just make sure you guys know I do understand how that distance works on the grid. But that's gonna be it for us. Alex, anything you want to leave us with before we head out today?
Well, I have a video on my channel. I made a Vampire the Masquerade lore video. I cover Warhammer 40k, Vampire the Masquerade, now Trench Crusade, other random tabletop topics. Today was on Clan Gangrel. It just dropped today. And next week we're going to cover a good old Trench Crusade lore topic on one of the factions. So go subscribe to my channel. It's linked in Cam's YouTube, or just look up Glue Boy. You'll find it. And I'm gonna get back in the swing. I wrote a large portion of my script, and I'll be finishing that up soon. So I'm right back into it.
I'm excited. I want to see your next Trench Crusade video really bad. I think it's very exciting.
I'm excited. I found some new lore and some new little clarifications that I'm really happy they made on my faction. So I'm pumped.
As for myself, I'll be still covering everything. I'll probably get the remainder of the archetype videos out before Player Core 2 drops. I'm really hoping. So then the remaining 2 archetypes, so Flip It and the Wing Dancer, I believe, are the last 2.
I love Flip It.
Flip It's very interesting. I'll also be continuing to cover Lancer content and Fabula Ultimate content. Though I will say when Player Core 2 drops, it's all Player Core 2. Everything Player Core 2, all my videos are going to be Player Core 2 for weeks. So if you love my Fabula Ultimate content and you love my Lancer content, they'll come back in like a month or so because also Tiansha character guide, which is gonna have some new Magus hybrid studies. So we'll see, but they will come back eventually at some point. Also, we're gonna be having the finale for our live play Riptide soon. It's either the next session or the session after. I would wager the session after next. So stay tuned for that. Then we'll be getting ready for Plague Watch, our really big campaign, Pathfinder campaign, and playing Mutants and Masterminds. So if you want to stay tuned on all of that, join our Discord. There'll be a message every time a new video comes out or a new live play is on, so you can stay up to date with that. And as well, if you're looking for t-shirts, I don't have a link in this particular stream, but I have a sponsorship with Into the AM. Get some really fun graphic tees. Get 10% off. They have a really good deal where you can get 3 graphic tees for under $20 each, which is, if you buy graphic tees, you know how expensive they tend to be. So getting each one for under 20 bucks, really, really good. So check out the link. It's in my other videos. You can find it there. Maybe I'll start doing that in the live streams as well. I wasn't even intending on doing it. I just thought about it because I saw Bigfoot peeking over the corner in the on the stream. But yeah, that's gonna be it for us. So I guess we'll go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.